SIDO has got a primary hand in terms of bringing in the management consultancy, the training and the ideas for the small scale industry build. SIDO are classified under three factors. One is coordination, second is industrial development, and the third is extension. Good morning and welcome to the second session, Unit 4 in Entrepreneurship and Small Business Management, where we are going to talk about a very important organization called as the Small Industries Development Organization, or it is also called in a short form as SIDO. Now, SIDO is a subordinate office of the Department of SSI, Small Scale Industry, and the Auxiliary and Rural Industry. So we call it as ARI. Followed by, it is an apex body and a nodal agency for formulating, coordinating, monitoring the policies and programs for promotion and development of small scale. Now, if you look into this entire picture here, now framing the syllabus is one of the most important thing in an education or in an academic background. Now, you might have excellent people who will deliver the lessons. You might have excellent resources where you have a study materials and so many other factors. But then what is very, very important in an academic circle is the syllabus first, because that determines the strength of the program. Similarly, SIDO is the person who is going to frame the syllabus for the micro and small medium enterprises altogether. SIDO looks after the policies which are right, which are apt, and which are feasible in terms of implementation. For a government of India, when you look into the industrial growth and development, it's quite vast. Why? Because when you have about 29 states and 7 union territories to be talked about, there are so many things that you have to look into picture. There are so many policies, there are so many challenges that has to come into picture. Now, what does SIDO typically do is that, being an auxiliary unit, being a supporting and an apex body in terms of framing the policy, they take charge in terms of creating an apt system, an apt methodology altogether, which can go ahead and help these small scale industries. The next thing is that the Development Commissioner is the head of SIDO. He is assisted by various directors and advisors in evolving, implementing various programs of training and management, consultancy, industrial investigation, possibilities of development of different types of small scale industries, industrial estates, etc. Now, what happens here in SIDO is that when you look into the head of the organization, that is the Development Commissioner, he is actually assisted by several members who take the role of guiding the commissioner in terms of framing the policy, especially in training and management, consultancy, industrial investigation, finding out how we need to develop the various industrial sectors, the small scale industries, and what exactly we need for the betterment of industrial estates. Now, if you look at every state in India, they have possibly come up with a tech park or with some industrial estate or with a special economic zone. The reason being is that every state wants to be a part of the industrial promotion activity. Now, that state might be small, the state might be big, the state is blessed with a lot of natural resources, or the state might be completely isolated from all this thing, but still everybody wants to be a part of the success story. So now you need an organization like SIDO, which will coordinate with the various state authorities, with the various developmental authorities, explain them what are the procedural factors, what are the different schemes, what are the different plans that has to come forward in terms of doing the business, in terms of building the industrial estate, and take it forward. So this is where we will say that SIDO has got a primary hand in terms of bringing in the management consultancy, the training and the ideas for the small scale industry build. Followed by, the main functions of SIDO are classified under three factors. One is coordination, second is industrial development, and the third is extension. Just look at the activities itself. We start with a coordinating activity, which is like a primary activity for most of these organizations. Industrial development, which is the core objective for us, and the extension services, which are the allied services for SIDO. Now, when you look into this factor, these functions are performed through a national network. That's very, very important. It's not through a single activity. It's a national network of institutions, associated agencies at the specific level altogether. SIDO functions through 27 offices, 31 small industries, 37 extension centers, 3 product process development center. So you can imagine the size altogether. Look here, you have about 27 offices here, 31 small scale industry services, 37 extension centers that comes into picture, 3 product process, and the 4 production services. So when you look into this entire total, that's quite interesting to see the number of offices that they have, the number of network that they have in terms of promoting the entire business. So this is going to be quite interesting to see that an organization with such an extended network, how they function as a single body in terms of promoting the welfare for the small and micro enterprises. Followed by the main functions of SIDO are classified into this small scale industries, except those who are falling into specialized board like the khadi and village industries. Why? Because the central silk board and the other factors are now classified under the Ministry of Textiles. So they have a different factor, they have a different body to be managed, and the KVIC itself is a separate body which takes care of these kind of businesses. Followed by, when you again look into the classification here, you will also see the main function performed by SIDO are functions relating to the coordination, that is to evolve a national policy for the development of small scale industry. Quite a big task. Why? Because when I say that I want to develop a national policy for any country, be it small or large, that means I have to look into all the possibilities, all the factors that are there in terms of running the business. So this is going to be quite challenging. It's also going to be quite interesting for all of us to know. Why? Because when you are going to evolve yourself into the development, you also need to look into the challenges. You also need to look into the factors of government policies and the competition that is happening around, and create something which is feasible. Followed by to coordinate the policies and programs of the various state governments. This is where it becomes even more tighter. Why? Because when you start looking into the government of India, and with having, as I told, about 29 states and 7 union territories coming into picture, this is quite challenging enough. Because we need to understand every state has got its own priority. They've got their own section and sectors of business altogether. Now, the priority, what is set by the government of Andhra Pradesh, the government of Tamil Nadu, government of Karnataka, and government of Kerala is entirely different. Why? Because each and every state have got certain priority sectors which are performing extremely well, and certain other sectors which require a great amount of assistance. So knowing these things, then only you will be able to promote a policy, promote an organization sector, promote an idea altogether in terms of building up the MSME. Followed by to maintain a proper liaison within the related central ministry, planning commission, and state governments. One side, you have framed the syllabus. Now it becomes even more difficult because the syllabus has to reach everybody. Everybody has to approve the syllabus, understand the syllabus, and then you have to promote it. So the same kind of challenge that you are going to see in SIDO. They have to coordinate with the various central ministry departments, planning commission, state government, and financial institutions, which have to understand and approve the similar kind of process. So it is not going to be that easy that they can get the things at the snap of a finger. Probably they have to start thinking about each and every department. Who are the network? Who are the contact person there? Are they working under the same capacity? What is the level of approval? Will it be possible within this field feasible this financial year? All those kind of calculations have to go in mind before they are able to implement a solution. Followed by to coordinate the programs of development of industrial estates. That's going to be definitely a very, very important factor. Now, when you start looking into the states of Haryana, or Tamil Nadu, or Gujarat, or Maharashtra, these have all been a very, very great examples for industrial promotion altogether, including when you start looking into Karnataka itself, which has got entire Silicon Valley rested upon it. Now, what happens in here is that when you want to come up with any kind of new industrial hub, you need to think about the consequences in terms of employment, in terms of the policy implementation, and in terms of challenges of setting up the entire organization or the entire board there. So what happens here is that SIDO has to take the primary responsibility of setting up this program, running it, finding out what are the pros and cons of coming up there, and trying to build up an entire system there. So that's why we call the system as very, very important organization. We call this entire, the functionaries as one of the most crucial factor here. Followed by to reserve items for production by small scale industry. So definitely you need to understand the production mechanism, how they are going to the factors, followed by to collect the data on consumer items imported, and then encourage setting up of industrial units by giving them coordinated assistance. Now, import and export has already been in the parameters in the preamble of India in terms of understanding the business. We have always been a great promoter of the import-export business altogether. But then once you start stepping into the production cycle here, by the small-scale industries altogether, you need to start understanding how things are moving, how we need to encourage the entire system, how we need to build the entire concept so that we are able to promote it, we are able to grow to the next level. To render that required support for the development of ancillary units altogether. Now, this is going to be a very big challenge here. To encourage small-scale industries to actively participate in the government stores purchase program by giving them necessary guidance, market advice, and assistance. So what we are seeing here is that we are seeing that SIDO also becomes a consultant. He comes forward in terms of participating with the government-related activities, the purchases program, giving them the necessary guidance, because you need to tell the government exactly what we need to procure at what rates and what would be the most feasible thing that we have to take forward for the current year altogether. And when you look into the size of the business operations that takes place through the subcontinent of India, this is going to be quite challenging because there are so many items, and India becoming a manufacturing hub in the coming years, SIDO's role becomes even more prominent. Followed by to make a provision for technical services in terms of improving the machinery, providing them a better factory layout, and in terms of advancing the production process. Now, India is no less to any other country in the world. That we need to acknowledge and accept the factor. Why? Because when you talk about China with a state-of-art machinery, India is also coming to the same level, and India wants to become a global leader in terms of manufacturing. So definitely SIDO's role would come there in terms of advising the government to make an arrangement for every industry to acquire the state-of-art technology so that they are able to promote better production process, better production facilities, and take it forward. Now, when you start looking into the factory layout and design, this is not going to be a normal diagram, normal sketch altogether. This requires a little bit of thinking, as in how you need to put in the machinery, where you need to have a waste disposal system, are you following the rules of promoting the green environment. So a lot of technical issues are there which needs to be given a prior thought altogether. So definitely SIDO comes in there as a part of the extension activity. Next, when we talk about the consultancy and training services, this is the factor that is going to build the competitive ability of the small scale industry. Now, why? Because unless and until you become internally competitive, you cannot compete against the external world. Let me just give you an example of Bajaj Auto. Till the year 91-92, Bajaj never had a marketing department. Why? Because they were completely satisfied with this factor that Bajaj was the #1 selling brand in the entire market. But after 91-92, once Hero started coming in, TVS started coming into picture, Bajaj started thinking about marketing, Bajaj started thinking about increasing their technological capability in their bikes and two-wheelers. Why this started coming into picture is that unless and until Bajaj could become internally a strong competitive brand with a high-end technology, they could have not gone to the world and claimed that the world's favorite bike was Bajaj Pulsar. When Bajaj Pulsar claimed that title, that was possible. Why? Because they were able to build a superb platform with a combination of technical prowess and technology and the management factors coming inside, through which they were able to build a global brand. So similarly, for all these small scale industries to grow into big MNCs, you need a competitive ability, a competence which has to come with a lot of training, lot of experience and consultancy which can guide them to come up the ladder. The next thing is to render marketing assistance to the small scale industries altogether to sell their products. This is definitely needed for them. Why? Because without marketing, we cannot grow further, and to provide assistance in economic investigation and information. So one has to provide that economic data in and out so that the industry keeps growing and they are able to get the assistance as far as possible. So definitely this is a very, very important factor that we are going to talk about. Now, with this, I come to the end of this particular session. I hope and believe that all the information that is being shared through this particular session will be of a great help and resource to you. In the upcoming session, we shall be talking more about the various other institutions which are supporting the MSME in the path of success. But until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session.